Today, we start with law of sines. So unfortunately, and this may be for some of you, your first kind of connection with this, not every triangle we deal with in trig is always a right triangle. So we have to have some options for when that doesn't occur. And the law of sines is our way of doing this. Now the law of sines will help me with a couple of different things. It can help me with finding the area of a triangle if I don't have a right angle to work with. It can also help me with finding angles and sides, just like we were doing with the other trig functions before. So, besides some of this funky stuff that showed up on my note sheet, like that needing to be a triangle, depending on the information that you're given in a triangle, okay? If you're given an angle and two sides, like we are for these, you can find the area of that triangle by using one of the three area formulas up here. Now notice, it's not something specific you have to memorize. Basically, it's you take the sine of the angle they give you, and then you take half the length of the two sides, okay? Because you'll notice they give you angle A, it's sides B and C. If they give you angle B, it's sides A and C. You'll never see the same letter with those. So for instance, when I get down to number 1, I'm like, okay, my area is going to be 1/2 times the product of my sides times the sine of my angle. Now, just a hint, when I'm plugging this into the calculator to avoid fractional issues, how do you make 1/2 a decimal? They're like, oh, he's going to actually let us use a decimal. Yes, yes, I am. So multiply those times your sine of 32. And it says round to the nearest tenth, so we'll all be doing the same thing. So it'd be 71.5. And unfortunately, they didn't give us any measurements, so I can't say square whatevers. But that's how these are all going to work. So whenever you're asked to find the area, it's just going to be half the product of the two sides you're given times the sine of the one angle that you get. So I will ask for assistance this time. What is my area of this triangle going to be? 62.3. Now, will I try to mess with you at times? Yes. Okay. Number 5 is strictly an attempt to try and mess with you. Because these other two are the same, even on 4 where there's not a picture, you would just use the two sides and the sine of 40. But when we get to 5, holy cow, it's information overload. Now think about it for a minute though. Okay, exactly, because you look at what you have, and you're like, I have side A, because the side and its angle are always opposite. I have side B, but I don't have side C, so when I go to find my area here, I'm going to use side A, I'm going to use side B, and I'm going to use the sine of C. So if they give you extra information, you've got to work through, you know, what do I need, what do I not need here to get to what I need. And what's my area going to be on this one? 32.9. So you're like, all right, area is just half my two sides times the sine of my angle. Okay, that's not bad. That's it when we're looking for area. No other fancy cuckoo things. That's it. So now, 32.9. Because I have my A and B, so I got to use the sine of angle C. But what if I'm not looking for the area? What if instead I am looking for a side or an angle or something like that? Then we get into this other little funky thing called the law of sines. Now I will make one little extra note here in the box. And this goes back to when we were finding angles with the right triangles. If I'm looking for an angle, make sure you use second and then the function to get that little -1 coming up, that inverse. Because otherwise you're going to get some really tiny angles. Finding an angle, use second and then your function, whether it's, you know, sine. We'll get to a point that it's cosine. But for right now, we're just going to do it that way. Okay. Under interesting info, it's interesting. We're not going to be dealing with it, though. Okay? That's something that I will let Mrs. Osar or Mrs. Abruzzo, when you're dealing with trig more than likely next year, get into that a little bit deeper, because all of our triangles are going to work. Okay? We're not going to have triangles that don't work here, or that aren't really triangles. It's enough to deal with without having to play with that. So, all right, find side CB. Find this guy. So what you're going to notice is, whenever you're going to do one of these, you have to have at least one angle and one side that are the same letter. Like you have to have sine of A and A, or sine of B and B. So like here, for instance, yeah, see, I have the angle and I have the side. So here's how this works. I'm going to take the sine of 72 over 375. The sine of C over side C, because these are interchangeable. We're going to set up a proportion. So then I look and I go, okay, well, to find this side, I need its angle opposite, which is the 15. So the sine of 15 over my mystery side. Sometimes you might have two sides and you might find an angle. In this case, I've got my angles. For some of you, it may be a good idea, at least at the start, to sit and kind of go, okay, so that's B, that's A, so I can visually see what sides go with what angles, just so I don't start throwing random things in here. So C went with C, A went with A. And yeah, they're just opposite of each other. So yeah, it should be something that's fairly simple to see. So when I go looking, now I'm going to cross multiply. So I've got x times the sine of 72 equals 375 times the sine of 15. And just to let some of you know, don't type it in the calculator until we're done getting x by itself, because otherwise we're going to get into rounding issues. What's my one step to get x alone? Okay, divide by the sine of 72, and we're even going to find a way to start shortcutting this. So my x is going to be 375 times the sine of 15 divided by the sine of 72. Notice basically what happens. This, okay, is just cross multiplying. Whatever's with x, you're basically going to just be dividing by that. So you don't have to necessarily go through this step. But watch how we're going to type this in. We're going to avoid as many problems as we can. So we're going to do 375 sine of 15, because I can't cancel out sines here. I'm going to hit enter. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide by the sine of 72. Now, could I do this all in one big line? Sure. Okay. But I don't want to get into a point where I'm forgetting to close a parenthesis, I hit divide, and I get all sorts of funky things. Because here's what my concern would be with some of you. If you tried to do it all at once, I see this happening. Let me kind of put the do not up here. Okay, you're like, well, that's close. 101.9 is close. It is, but what you'd end up with here is you'd end up taking the sine of 15 divided by the sine of 72, and that's not what you want to be doing. So that's why I'm saying, if you do it one part at a time, do your numerator, hit enter, divide by your denominator, you're going to get to the right answer every time that way, and you're not going to end up with some screwball answer that's close, but not quite. Okay? So let's see. Before we go angling, let's come down to 8. Let's do one more side first. And if I ever do something you're like, wait a minute, what? Stop me. Make sure I'm not doing something bad. All right, let's see here. what can we do here? Where do I have things that might match up?
Angle A, side A.
Do I have side A?
Which one are we doing?
This one.
Angle
Let me ask a different question. What side do I have?
C.
Okay, I have side C. Is there a way I can figure out what angle C is?
Yeah.
How?
180 minus the other angle?
Yeah, here, if they give me the other two angles, if I do 180 minus those two angles, I can figure out what C is going to be. So C is 150, and now I have my angle and my side. So the first part of my proportion is sine of 150 over 51. And I'm looking for side AC right here. Which angle does that match up with? 12. It matches up with B. So I've got the sine of 12, because that's my B, over side B, or if you call it X, that's okay too. And basically what you can start to do is say, okay, here's my part that doesn't have a variable. So 51 sine of 12, and you just divide by whatever's with your variable term. And like we mentioned before, do it in pieces. So 51 sine of 12, because then if you even forget to close your parentheses, it works out okay. And then divide by the sine of 150. So my B is 21.2.
No.
Yeah, side AC is, if I was looking at it in my basing, would be like B is. Okay, if you want to call it AC, so I don't confuse everybody, because side B and this side AC as a segment would be the same. If we want to call it AC, we can. Any issues so far with sides? Is your proportion set up the same way if you're getting a different answer?
I don't know.
Is your calculator in degree mode? Because if we have issues, I want to try and get those fixed up. Gonna have to get Ben fixed up here in a second.
I got it.
You got it? Okay. So now, angles. Slightly different. Same setup, it's just gonna be how we solve it. So, which one do I have an angle and a side for in number 10 up here?
Angle A, side A.
Yeah, angle A and side A. So I got the sine of 30
Wait, which
over
one?
10. And if I'm looking for angle C, what's my side for angle C?
Okay.
20. And this is going to be the sine of C. So here's how this changes a little bit. I'm still going to multiply. So 20 sine of 30. I'm still going to divide by whatever's with my variable term. But by having that sign in with my C, that's telling me I need to use
Inverses.
the inverse. I need to use second. So here's how we're going to do this. Again, just a suggestion, but after time doing this, this is what I would do. I would do the 20 times sine of 30 divided by 10. Okay? And you can hit enter each time if you want to. You're like, 1, what the heck? Once you get the answer, if you hit second sine, and then if you don't know how to do this in the calculator yet, if you hit second and the negative button down here, it will plug your answer from the prior step in.
I get it.
Okay? Now, could I, if I wanted to, let's see if this would work. What if I said, I just want to do this just once and just be done Well, let's see if we can make that happen or if it just makes life worse. Second sine, and I'm going to plug all of this in there and see how this works. So 20 sine of 30, but I got to close my parenthesis, divided by 10, and I got to close my parenthesis. Oh, okay. So I can do it all at once for my speed demons out there. But notice I have to close my parenthesis after sine, and I have to close my parenthesis again at the end. So there's little things. So it just depends on which route you want to go to get there. But either one will work. Okay, so that ends up being 90. Let's do another angle here. Let's do 12. You get that out of the way. All right, so we got A. All right. So we're going to do sine of 70 over 109, because again, that first one always wants to be the one where you have the side and the angle. Find angle B, and we know its side is 105. So let's see here. I end up with 105 times the sine of 70 divided by 109. And again, you can either deal with the fractional part first. I'll do it both ways again, just so you can see and kind of see which way you want to do it. If you want to do it kind of a step by step, I can do 105 sine of 70 divided by 109 and hit enter. But then that wouldn't be my angle. I'd do second sine, because I need the little -1 when I'm looking for an angle. And then second negative, because I want that decimal in there. Okay. Well, let me write this down, and then we will. Oh, the angle measures the nearest degree. I got to read my own directions. Okay, if I'm going here, what I did, kind of when I do it in the two-step form, is I typed this fraction in over here first. And I hit enter, and I get this funky little decimal. So let me do that one more time here. So 105 sine of 70 divided by 109. Okay, once I get that, I'm going to hit second sine, because that's going to help me with my angle. And you can either type that decimal in, which, yeah, I really don't want to type all that in, or if you hit second and the negative button, what it'll do is it'll plug that entire decimal in for you. And then I can hit enter, and that'll be my angle. Okay? And again, if some of you say, I'm not doing two steps, forget that. Okay, if you're going to go with that route, you do second sine, and then you type that entire fraction into your calculator, making sure your parentheses are in, and hit enter, and you get the same thing. Okay? What's that? That's when you're getting into other things with memory, having it kind of store different functions. How's we doing? Oh, okay. Number 11. All right. Yeah.
Is that 105 or 106?
105. Yeah, it's 105. The 5 kind of blends in with the 0. So, all right. Let's go back to sides here. Now, again, I've got side C, so I need to know this angle. So I'd add those two up, which would be 112, and do 180 minus 112, which would make angle C 68. So once I get there, I can do the sine of 68 for 22. And since I'm looking for side AC, that's opposite my angle B. So I'd use the sine of 75, and if we're looking for side AC, I'll call it X or B or whatever I want to call it. So then X is going to be 22 times the sine of 75 over the sine of 68. And again,
Get number.
this is just me. I just do them part at a time because I tend to do silly things with parentheses otherwise. So that's how that's going to work. So, I have one last one. Just one. Because again, there's always seems to be this little twist. It's like, okay, we found an angle, we found a side. You know, what else can you possibly throw our way here that could be out there and kind of weird?
The outside.
No, we're not going for exterior angles.
Yeah.
Sorry. If you flip over, okay, we're going to take a look at number 13 here. And I apologize, my R's are supposed to be degree signs. Something about the version of Word they have here is kind of strange.
What is it?
So, we are going to find the missing angles and missing sides. Oh, crap. So this is back to that thing where we're finding basically everything they don't give to us. So I'm going to look at this for a second. Let me draw myself a triangle here.
Is it a right triangle?
We don't know that, so I'm just drawing a random triangle. And I'm going to draw in the parts that they've given me. So they gave me A, they gave me B, and they gave me side A. So my job is to find angle C, side C, and side B.
Yeah.
What do you think the easiest thing to find is going to be?
Angle C.
Angle C. Okay. What's angle C going to be?
A number.
Yes, it is going to be a number. I agree. 100. Okay. Okay, so I got that part. Once I get here, now I'm going to use my law of sines to figure out my other sides. So since they gave me this originally, I'll just start with this. So I've got the sine of 23. And now that I've got all the angles, I could kind of pick and choose how I want to do this.
Yeah.
Over 12.
Over 12.
So let's say I want to do B next. Which sine of what am I going to use?
75. I mean, 57.
Okay. Because the B and the 57 go together. I'm going to do the sine of 57.
Yeah.
So B will be 12 times the sine of 57. Just find your diagonal that doesn't have your missing variable in it. Divide by your other one. And again, we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So what's my B going to be? Math humor. 25.8. So this time, I have one side left to find. I got all three angles. I got two of my sides.
Side B, right?
Now, this is just me. I would use the same angle and side that I did on the first one. So again, I would use the sine of 23 over 12. This time I'm doing side C, which I figured out its angle was 100. Same exact process. Find the diagonal that doesn't have C in it, multiply those together, and divide by your other sine. And how long is side C going to be?
30.2.
30.2. So, I'm going to live dangerously today.
Don't do it.
Oh yeah, I'm going to do it.
You ain't about that.
So here's how we're going to live dangerously. I am going to put my faith in you.
What?
Oh yeah, I'm going to do it.
You lying now?
I know, I'm crazy. So, this stuff, we're working on 803. 24 to 26 are just like the problems we just did.
Yep.
No, not evens. 24 to 20. 24 to 26. I know, it's terrible. It's 3 problems. Then,
Well, odds would be better.
okay, the challenge comes. There's an odd in there, 1.
Yeah, that's why I picked odds.
So, then 56, 60, and 64 are story problems.
Oh, yeah.
Now, but wait a minute. I want to check this before I say this for sure. I don't want to give bad information, especially on the internet. You know, that'd be terrible. 56. Okay, there's a picture on one of them. You're drawing pictures on the other 2. So, that's kind of where we are at. I'll tell you, I'll even do one more thing.
No, not yet.
I'm going to be, watch how, this is just too much. It's Feel Good Friday. To let some of you feel a little better on the story problems, to see that things are going well as you're doing them.
Give us an odd.
Oh, you're giving us the answer.
I'm going to give a little bit of assistance.
Give us an odd one.
No, I'm not giving you an odd one. You can always do odd ones if you wanted to be able to see if you're doing things right. But instead, you'll never guess what the red numbers are.
Answers.
The answers, okay?
So it's just like
Because I want to make sure you know what you're doing, so you're like, okay, I tried drawing this. Did I get it right? Ooh, I did. Okay. 17.6 for 56, 5.2 for 60, and 50.5 for 64. Now again, 6 flippin' problems. Do them. Have them ready to go Monday. Thank you.